Most people think the world changes the way it looks on the news. Fast, dramatic, surprising. A market crashes overnight. An empire falls. A currency collapses. And everyone asks the same question. How did this happen so fast? The truth is, it didn't. If you understand this one pattern, you understand how the world actually works. It's baked into our psychology. It's the driving force behind market cycles, and it's the ultimate lesson of economic history. Most people miss it until the damage is done. Today, I want to show you why we're literally wired to ignore this pattern, and how you can position your life and your money to benefit when the rest of the world is caught off guard. It's a concept known as gradually, then suddenly. And once you see it, you recognize it in so many places in our world. Let's go. Even nature runs on this law. Think about a fault line. For 100 years, two massive tectonic plates push against each other. They move a few centimeters a year, so slow you'd never feel it. That's the gradual phase. But that energy doesn't just disappear. It's being stored as pressure. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, the friction snaps. The earthquake levels the city in 30 seconds. The earthquake didn't just happen. It was the sudden release of a century of gradual pressure. History follows the exact same script. Great nations don't just vanish. They rot from the inside out, through a slow process of indiscipline. I like to think of economics as a mathematical way of measuring human character. It's the constant struggle between the discipline to face hard truth today and the indiscipline to push the pain into the future. When leaders choose the easy way out, printing money to solve problems, they are simply choosing a gradual path of destruction over a sudden one. Take the British pounds. In the 1800s, the pound was the undisputed king of currencies, the anchor for the entire world. But behind the scenes, the British Empire started living on borrowed time and borrowed money. For decades, they overextended themselves. They spent more than they produced. They racked up massive debts to fund a lifestyle the country could no longer afford. To the average person in London in 1910, life felt stable. The currency still worked. The shops were full. That was a gradual phase. The internal rot that no one wanted to acknowledge, but energy always finds a way out. When the sudden shock of the Great War hit, the system finally reached its breaking point. Britain was forced off the gold standard to pay for the war, and almost overnight, the world realized the pound couldn't carry the weight anymore. What looked like a sudden collapse in the history books was actually just a bill coming due for 40 years of living beyond their means. The war didn't cause the decline, it's just accelerated the ending that was already written. We see the same pattern playing out today. The US dollar has held the king status for 80 years. But if you look at the gradual data, the warning signs are there. The dollar's share of global reserves has fallen from 71% in 2001 to under 60% today. If the law of gradually then suddenly holds true, the shifts to whatever comes next won't be a polite transition. It will be a sudden snap that catches everyone off guard. Let's bring this close to home and look at the stock market. This is where most people get snapped by the rubber band. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. In the history books, we remember it as a terrifying few months where the world's banking system almost collapsed. But the gradual phase actually started 6 years earlier. Starting around 2002, the internal rot began. It wasn't a secret, it was just boring. Lenders started to get a little looser with their standards. They started giving mortgages to people who couldn't afford them. Then they bundled those bad loans together and called them AAA investments. For years, it worked. House prices went up. Everyone felt like a genius. Neighbors were bragging about their home equity at barbecues. That was the gradual phase. The buildup of elastic pressure, most people mistook that stability for safety. But in reality, the system was loading the spring for a disaster. Then come the sudden phase. In 2007, a few people stopped paying their mortgages. It was a trickle at first. Then, in 2008, Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. In a single weekend, the snap happened. The global financial system froze. Trillions of dollars of wealth evaporated in weeks. People asked, how did the world change in a weekend? It didn't. The world changed over 6 years of bad decisions and ignored warning signs. The weekend was just when the math finally caught up to reality. This is the heart of every market cycle. Greed starts the gradual phase. Fear finishes the sudden one. The reason people lose money in these cycles isn't because they aren't smart. It's because they confuse the length of the gradual phase with the level of risk. They think because things have been fine for 10 years, they'll be fine for 11. But in a gradual, then suddenly world, the longer the quiet period lasts, the more energy is being stored for the snap. So why do we keep falling for this? Because your brain has a glitch I call the snapshot trap. Evolutionarily, we are great at spotting sudden threats, like a car swerving into our lane, but we are terrible at tracking gradual change. Your brain doesn't record a video, It takes snapshots. If the difference between today and yesterday is small, your brain registers zero change. Think about your health. You don't wake up one morning out of shape. It's one extra slice of pizza, one skip workout. Because each snapshot looks the same. You feel normal until the day you don't. In finance, this glitch is a silent killer. It's the boiling frog effect. If you drop a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But turn the heat up 1 degree at a time, and it stays until it's too late. In our world, that 1 degree is the 2% of inflation target. If gas prices double overnight, there would be a riot. But when they go 15 cents at a time, you just sigh and keep driving. Your brain registers stability while the water is heating a simmer. Over 20 years, that stable 2% destroy your life's work. $100,000 today will only buy you about $67,000 worth of goods 2 decades from now. You didn't lose that money in a market crash. You lost it because your brain was wired to ignore the heat. If the gradual phase is so dangerous, why does it keep happening? Think of the economy like a massive rubber band. In a healthy world, that band has some tension, but it's flexible. But for the last 50 years, every time the economy started to slow down, we did the same thing. We printed money and lowered interest rate to force it back up. We are pulling on that rubber band, trying to keep it from ever going slack. We're trying to avoid the sudden pain of correction. But in doing so, we are just storing massive amount of energy. Stored energy always finds a way out. In our world, that tension escapes as wealth inequality. When the government prints money, it doesn't hit everyone's bank account all at once. It flows to the bank and the biggest players first. They get to spend that new money while prices are still low. And by the time it trickles down to your paycheck, prices have already jumped. The people closest to the printing press win. The people furthest away, the savers and the workers, pay for the snap of the rubber band through a higher cost of living. This creates a social fault line. If people can't explain the math, they feel the game is rigged. The pressure builds in the background for decades. That's the gradual phase. But the sudden phase isn't always a red candle on a stock chart. Sometimes the rubber band snaps, and what you get is a total breakdown of trust and social stability. The suddenly phase is when the math finally breaks the culture. Like most things in life, there are two sides to this coin. If the first side is the snap that breaks the empire, the other side, the yin to the yang, is the secret to how you build a fortune. Think about this riddle. Imagine a pond with a single lily pad that doubles in size every day. It takes 30 days for that lily pad to completely cover the pond. On what day is the pond still half empty? The answer is day 29. On day 28, the pond is only 25% covered. If you're standing on the shore, the pond looks empty. You feel like you have all the time in the world. Then, in just 48 hours, the system is full. That is the nature of exponential growth. It looks like a miracle at the end, but it was just the result of 30 days of quiet, consistent work. This is exactly how your savings work. Let's say you invest for 30 years. Because of the way the math works, you will likely see half of your total lifetime wealth created in the final 10 years. Think about how heavy that is. You can put in 70% of the time, 2 decades of working, saving, and being disciplined, and still have less than half of your final result. This is where most people fail. They watch their account grow slowly for 20 years. They get frustrated that they aren't rich yet, and they quit right before the suddenly phase begins. They exit the gradual climb right before the payoff. The gradual phase is where your discipline is tested. The sudden phase is where your freedom is built. But you cannot have the second without the first. Knowing the operating system has a bug is the first step to working around it. If you want to be on the right side of math, you need a lifeboat strategy. 1. Change your yardstick. Stop measuring your progress in dollars. If the dollar is a melting ruler, you can't trust it. Measure your life in purchasing power. Ask yourself, does what I own today buy me more life than it did last year? 2. Build the lifeboat. Own things that cannot be conjured out of thin air. Real estate, gold, and increasingly Bitcoin. These aren't just investments, they are exits. You don't buy a lifeboat because you want to go for a swim. You buy it so that when the ship takes on water, you already have a place to stand. 3. Build your conviction. The suddenly phase is chaotic. If you don't know why you own your lifeboat, you will jump out the moment the waves get choppy. The gradual phase is your time to study. Once the suddenly phase hits, the door to the lifeboat closes. You are either prepared or you are a victim of the math. The world changes slowly until it doesn't. I hope you find this useful. Have a meaningful day.